Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a video about a beauty tool that I get asked questions about all the time. It is probably the number one thing I get asked questions about, and that is this little beauty right here, the Beauty Blender. This is one of my absolute favorite tools to use to apply my makeup, and I get questions all the time. Do you use it wet? Do you use it dry? How do you use it? Do you use it damp? How do you get it damp? How do you apply your makeup with it? Do you apply all your makeup with it? What makeup can I apply with it? So many questions get asked all the time. So I figured I would make a video dedicated to the Beauty Blender, all the uses I use it for, how to properly dampen it, how to properly clean it, all these types of things. So if you want to know more about how to use a Beauty Blender, just keep watching. The very first thing I want to show you guys was how Beauty Blenders come when you first purchase them, and that is in this little guy right here. Comes in a little plastic case, and it actually has ventilation on the top and the bottom, so it's perfect for storing your Beauty Blender once you start using it. These do come in a variety of colors. They come in a variety of packs. I know there's one that you can get 2 Beauty Blenders and a cleanser as well, and it's a little bit cheaper that way. And there's lots of different colors. I personally like the original pink one the best. I just find it has that perfect density to it, and it just applies everything so perfectly. So that's the one I usually go for. Once you take it out, there is this tiny little booklet in there. You unfold it, and it simply says wet, squeeze, bounce, cleanse, and dry. Those are the steps I'm going to be showing you guys today and how exactly to do all that. When you first get the Beauty Blender, it is very bright neon pink. This will not stay this way. It will have some of the pink dye come out when you wash it, but don't worry, that will not transfer to your face. I have never had a problem getting that pink coloring on my face. This is what it looks like dry. It's nice and spongy and soft, but I never ever use this dry. It does not give the same smooth texture, and it's a great tool to use wet. It performs to its fullest capabilities when it is wet. So I'm going to take you to the sink and show you exactly how to wet it down. I find the easiest way to get the sponge fully saturated is to run it under the water for a couple of seconds, give it a good squeeze, put it back under the water, give another good squeeze, put it back under the water. That way the water is getting all the way to the center of the sponge. Then once you think it's fully saturated, turn off the water, squeeze it, wrap it in a clean towel, and give it one final squeeze. That way the sponge is still damp, but it's not soaking wet. Now that we have a dampened sponge, I'm going to start applying my makeup. You can see how much bigger it's gotten, and it's just like it's a lot softer and spongier now. And look how perfectly it fits into the Beauty Blender holder. So while you're busy doing your other makeup, you can have it sitting in there, and it stays nice and clean and protected. So I'm going to quickly apply some primer with my fingers before I get into the foundation and concealer. So when I do my makeup, I like to clean up my eyebrows before I apply my foundation. So I'm going to take my Fit Me concealer and do a swipe of that over each brow. Now I use a brush first, a flat shader brush like this, and I shape the top of my eyebrows with that. Once I've shaped the top of my eyebrows, I just kind of spread out the concealer as well as I can, and then I use my Beauty Blender to soften up the edges. And of course, you're always using a dabbing motion. You don't want to swipe with the sponge. So now I can go in with foundation. I'm going to use my L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte. I am 2 shades mixed together, so that's why I have 2 of them here. So I'm just going to take a plate. You can use a glass tray, you can use a mixing palette, whatever you have on hand. I use a clean plate. I'm going to mix my 2 foundations together on here. Now there's 2 different ways I like to apply my foundation with the Beauty Blender. One option is to take some of that on a little brush or even on your finger and start dotting it on your face, or you can even do strokes, whatever you want to do to get the foundation onto your face before you start dabbing. So something like that. And then you can take the Beauty Blender, I like to use the big fat end, and just start bouncing. So that's your first option. Your other option is to take the Beauty Blender and dip it directly into the foundation. To do this, I don't want to just take one big clump like that and start sticking it on my face. I want to kind of bounce it around on there. get a nice even coating on there, and then start applying it to my face. Now if you're having a hard time getting around your nose or any other place on your face, you can turn around, use the pointier end, and get in those little crevices. That point actually comes in really handy when we're using concealer, which I'm about to do. Now moving on to concealer, I'm going to take that same Maybelline Fit Me concealer and place that underneath my eyes. Down the bridge of my nose, a little bit on my T-zone, and on my chin. This is when the tip comes in really handy. This gets you right in up and close underneath your eye. And then I like to use the side of it to go up my nose. You can even pinch it together to get it a little bit more narrow and more precise. And then I just kind of move it side to side to do my T-zone. And the tip's really good for getting right in that corner socket of your eye, which is a place that often gets missed. And again, just bring that around the crevices of my nose. And then for my chin, I just flip it back over. Use that larger space. The next thing I'm going to do with my sponge is apply my powder underneath my eyes. This is a technique called baking and just really sets the under eyes in place perfectly. So I'm taking a loose powder and sticking it into the lid of my container. This is the RCMA powder. I just have it in another container because the container it comes in is not very good for doing this. So I have the powder in there, and I'm just going to dip the tip of the sponge into there, give it a couple bounces so that it really coats the side of my sponge. And I'm just going to press that right under my eye, and you want that thick powdery look because that's what's really going to set your makeup into place. You can do this in other areas of your face as well, especially if you're going to be wanting to keep this on all night, or if you're going out dancing or something. You can definitely powder areas of your face like this that'll just really lock it into place. So I'm going to do my T-zone because that gets oily, and my chin. Now you just let that sit for a couple of seconds. Actually, while I'm waiting for that to set, I'm going to put on some liquid bronzer. This is another really easy product to put on with a beauty blender. So I'm going to take my Temp 2 shimmer bronzer and put that on my little mixing plate. Just a couple of drops. Whoop. And then for this, I don't want to use the side that I used the powder with, so I'm just going to move over a little bit and use this part right here. And again, I'm going to tap it in. And then I'm going to go over to the side and just kind of tap it out a little bit so it's not a super saturated amount. And then I'm just going to start placing this on my cheek where I want it to go. And then I'm going to use the fat end of my blender. I'm actually going to pinch it a little bit and start blending it out. And always using those dabbing motions. I'm never going to swipe with this. And there you have a nice little subtle bronzer action happening. I'm not going to put any more on there, but I'm going to dab a little bit along my forehead. Again, applying it with the side and then dabbing it out with the bottom of the sponge. I have not once dipped back into the bronzer, and I'm still getting some pigment from it. And then again, turning it on the bottom and dabbing it out. Now the powder has set for a bit. I'm going to take a fluffy brush and wipe it away. And I'm just going to quickly powder the rest of my face. And yes, you can powder right over that bronzer that you just did to set that down into place too. Now if you want to, you can use a powder bronzer on top of that. I'm not going to today because I just want something really subtle. Now another thing I could have done before powdering the rest of my face was I could have used a liquid highlighter and used the same technique as I used with the liquid bronzer, but I'm actually going to do some powder highlight. This is the Ofra Rodeo Drive Highlight. I'm going to apply that with my beauty blender. So I'm kind of running out of spots to use, but I'm going to use this side right over here that's still fairly clean. I'm just going to rub it in my highlight a little bit. Ooh, that might be a little bit too much. Yeah, we'll go for it. I'm actually going to start bouncing that lightly into my skin. And that's just gonna melt it right into your skin, so it looks so beautiful and flawless. Look at that glowing highlight. Another thing that you can blend out with the Beauty Blender is a cream contour, like this Wet n Wild stick contour. This one you would draw onto your face and then use the Beauty Blender to tap it out. It's a little bit more difficult to blend out just because it's such a stiff product, which is why I use the liquid one, but creams can definitely be blended out with a Beauty Blender as well. Oh, another thing that you can use the Beauty Blender for is cream blushes as well. I currently don't have any cream blushes in my collection because I'm not a big fan of them. I'm not a big fan of blush in general, but you can definitely use the Beauty Blender to apply a cream blush. Now I'm going to show you the steps I take to wash my Beauty Blender. You can definitely purchase an actual Beauty Blender cleanser. They have a bar as well as a liquid cleanser. I personally just use Dawn dish soap. It does a really good job of breaking down the oils in makeup and removing everything really, really well. So first I wet down my sponge really good. Again, squeeze it out a few times. Then I just drizzle a little bit of Dawn dish soap over the sponge. And then I rub the sponge in my hands really good. I also squeeze it quite a bit to help get the soap right down into the center of the sponge as well. And then I rinse it out a few times, again doing the squeezing several times. And once my sponge runs clean, then I know that there's no more makeup hidden in it. I squeeze it again in a towel, and then I set it right back in its Beauty Blender holder. And that's that. You can just let it sit and dry until the next time you use it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. And also make sure you're following me on Instagram at LeilaniGrace. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys!